Are you interested in learning a new language, or do you just want to know which are the best languages you need to know for the upcoming years? Then welcome to this video where I will present to you the top 8 languages to learn so that you can progress in your life. Whether it is to have new career opportunities, move to a new country, speak the language of your dream holiday destination, or simply speak with foreigners in your country, learning these languages will be able to help you in many ways in 2025 and also in the years after. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to this channel, my name is Quentin. I have lived in 5 different countries so far and learned 6 different languages. So French, German, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and of course, English. This video is supposed to help you choose which language to learn next, so let's dive right into it. At the end of this video, I'm also going to rank these languages by how useful they are in today's world and how difficult each of them is to learn, which will make the decision easier for you. First up is the main language of the country of the Middle Kingdom, or as they would say, Zhongguo. It's the land of one of the 7 world wonders, the Great Wall of China, home to some amazing dishes like dumplings and Peking duck, and a country where innovation meets ancient culture. That's right, I'm talking about Mandarin Chinese. China is the 2nd largest country in the world in terms of population, and even though there are hundreds of languages in China, the large majority of the Chinese population speaks Mandarin. And therefore, over 1 billion people speak it, and that makes it the 2nd most spoken language in the world after English, of course. Being also the 2nd biggest economy in the world, China is increasing its power and influence in the world, and Chinese communities are growing in almost every country. So if that's not enough to convince you of its usefulness, Chinese is also one of the 6 official languages of the United Nations and is often listed as one of the most essential languages for business. Mandarin is often said to be a very challenging language to learn. And that's true, especially when wanting to learn how to read and write, because instead of using an alphabet, it has characters. And not just a small amount. There are over 50,000 of them. However, Chinese grammar is very easy, so learning to speak isn't as difficult as people always think. It is estimated that you only need around 2,000 characters for everyday communication, so don't worry too much. In conclusion, learning Mandarin will certainly open up many business and travel opportunities, and don't be discouraged by its alleged difficulty. Second on the list is a language that is the official language in over 20 countries and also of the UN. When only looking at native speakers, it is even in front of English and is widely spoken across all the Americas and in some parts of Africa and Europe. That's right, I'm talking about Spanish, the language of vibrant expression and rich literary traditions. From the literature Nobel Prize poetry of Pablo Neruda to the novels of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. With almost 600 million speakers worldwide, it is the 4th most widely spoken language and kind of the unofficial 2nd language of the United States, where 13% of the population speaks it. Business-wise, learning Spanish is especially important for people treating with the Americas. And for people who like to travel, Spanish can be very useful because it is the language of very popular tourist destinations such as Spain and Mexico, countries where English is not widely spoken. One curiosity about Spanish is that every country speaks a different type of Spanish, and of course within the country there are several accents and dialects. This makes it easier to understand native speakers from certain countries and harder for others. So if you ever feel like you're fluent in Spanish, just talk to someone from Chile. They will humble you real quick. I believe that Spanish isn't a very difficult language to learn, and there are many options for you to do so. From language schools in different countries to tons of learning materials online, getting access to a Spanish course is easy, and the language should definitely be on your list to consider. Let's continue with a language related to Spanish, which is also the official language of 29 countries on 5 continents, the UN, and commonly used in international non-profits and diplomacy. This time I'm talking about the language of love, which is of course French. Learning French can have many different advantages. It is spoken by more than 300 million people, placing it in the top 6 of the most spoken languages worldwide. Its cultural influence in literature, fashion, cuisine, and arts remains strong, and it continues to be widely taught as a 2nd language around the world. With France being the most visited country in the world and French people being famously reluctant to speak French, can also be very useful for your next holiday destination. French is also the official or working language of many international organizations, ranging from the UN and the European Union to sports organizations such as the International Olympic Committee and justice organizations like the International Court of Justice. Therefore, it can be particularly useful if you want to pursue a career in the non-profit or diplomatic area. Additionally, French is a Romance language, meaning it's related to Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. If you speak one of those languages, learning French will be much easier for you. Next up is a language that uses a completely different alphabet than the Latin one, and even the reading direction is the opposite of what most of us are used to. Arabic, the main language of the Middle East and North Africa, and known for its use in mathematics, philosophy, and science, is spoken by more than 350 million people around the world. Again, it is the official language in over 20 countries and of the United Nations. People who speak Arabic are currently in high demand for government jobs, especially in the United States and Europe. The government of the US has even classified Arabic as a language of strategic importance. One peculiarity of Arabic is that it varies widely depending on where it's spoken. For example, Moroccan and Lebanese Arabic can be so different from each other that people from those countries might have trouble understanding each other. Another one is that Arabic had a strong influence on the Spanish language, and there are still a lot of words used in Spanish today that are derived from Arabic. Arabic is not an easy language to learn, but its growing influence around the world and the job opportunities opening up for Arabic speakers might make it interesting for you to learn. And at this point, we are already halfway through with our top 8 languages to learn. Let me know in the comments if you are considering to learn one of these 4 languages in the near future. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more tips and get help on how to learn any language. Number 5 goes to a language spoken in the 5th largest country in the world. But it is not only the official language of this country, home to over 210 million people, it is also the official language of a tiny country in Europe which had a huge influence around the world 500 years ago and which gave its name to a language. Yes, this time I'm talking about Portuguese. Portuguese is especially known for being the lyrical language of different music genres such as fado, bossa nova, and samba, but also for being the language of explorers, traders, and conquerors, which is why it is spoken in geographically diverse regions and used in Europe, South America, Africa, and even Asia. With Brazil being in the top 10 largest economies of the world and a very popular destination, as well as Portugal, Portugal is also a very important language for business people and travelers. Because it is so similar to Spanish, if you speak one of those 2 languages, it will be very easy for you to learn the other one. Some might even say that you don't have to learn the other one, as for example, a native Spanish speaker can understand Portuguese and vice versa. And I've experienced this myself and can tell you that it actually works. Therefore, learning Portuguese will not only help you get around in Portuguese-speaking countries, but also in all the other ones where Spanish is the main language. Next up is again a language very different from most Western languages. Spoken in the land of the rising sun, home to Nintendo and sushi, it is the native language of 125 million people. Even though Japanese is mainly spoken in just Japan, there are still plenty of reasons to learn this very interesting language. Japan is home to some of the most innovative companies on the planet, such as Sony, Panasonic, and Nintendo, and the 4th largest economy in the world, making its language really interesting for people pursuing a career in tech. It is also a very popular tourist destination, and learning at least the basics will help you get around much easier. Fun fact, Japanese is also the 3rd most spoken language on the internet, so finding learning resources online and partners to practice shouldn't be too hard. However, Japanese is also considered to be one of the hardest languages to learn. But if you are really into Japanese culture or you are just looking for a challenge, then it might be worth it to try it out. On spot number 7 of this list, we have a language with a very interesting history. Only declared as the national language of the country in 1945, and despite being the native language of only about 5% of the population back then, Bahasa Indonesian is now spoken by over 250 million people. Even though it is now the official language of one of the largest countries on the planet and is spoken by the vast majority of the population, it is still not the mainly spoken language at home for Indonesians. Indonesian is still not on the list of languages to learn for many people. However, there is a rising interest in the language, especially in other countries from the Southeast Asian region and Australia, China, and Japan. One great advantage of Bahasa Indonesian is that it is not that hard to learn for foreigners and the pronunciation is quite easy in general, at least for the official version. However, there are some factors that could make it a bit more challenging. Since Indonesian is not the mother tongue of many Indonesians, it often occurs that some regional slang is added when spoken. That's why it might seem easy to understand official texts, the media, etc., but the more informal speech of day-to-day conversation might be a bit more complicated. If you're also interested in history, I also highly recommend that you check out the history of this language, as it took a path that is not too common to see in other languages. Last but not least, I have a pluricentric language on the list, which means that it is a language with several codified standard forms, but it has the particularity to often appear as two separate languages, which are Hindi and Urdu. The unifying language is often referred to as Hindustani or Hindi Urdu. Even though they do not use the same script and have different cultural associations, they are mutually intelligible, and one might even say that they are essentially the same language. Considering this, Hindustani is the third most spoken language in the world and is mostly used in Pakistan and India. With India being the most populated country on earth and Pakistan at rank number 5, Hindustani is already one of the most important languages of the region, and its influence is growing continuously. Especially for professional reasons, learning this language could be very interesting. And if you think that learning Hindi or Urdu is difficult, I reassure you a bit. As a fluent English speaker, it might be easier than you think, and some words used in English actually come from Hindustani, such as shampoo or jungle. Alright, so these were my top 8 languages for you to learn in the next years. As promised at the beginning of this video, I will now rank these languages based on usefulness and difficulty, so that you can decide more easily which language you should learn next. So let's get started with the ranking based on usefulness. Starting from the bottom, we have Bahasa Indonesian, a language spoken by over 200 million people and useful for exploring Indonesia's amazing islands and emerging economy. Next up is Japanese, which can be used for working with Japan's technology and cultural exports like anime and gaming. In 6th place is Portuguese, which will help you connect to Lusophone music and literature. Hindustani or Hindi Urdu takes 5th, opening doors to some of the largest populated countries in the world. Arabic ranks 4th, which is considered a language of strategic interest by the US government. And 3rd is French, a global language of diplomacy, art, and of course, love. The 2nd place is secured by Spanish, which can help you navigate your way through countries and cultures across Latin America, Europe, and the US. And at the top of this list, we find Mandarin Chinese, the language with the highest number of native speakers in the world. For the difficulty ranking, I will start from most difficult to easiest to learn. So first up, we have Mandarin Chinese, followed by Arabic and Japanese, then Hindustani. French, getting easier, is Bahasa Indonesian, Portuguese, and the easiest for me is Spanish. Keep in mind that this is my personal ranking, and for example, you might have a special use for a certain language, and that's why it might be more important and useful for you to learn that language. Some languages might also seem easier to learn for you if you speak languages that are relatively similar to the ones you want to learn. So this is just my personal ranking based on my experience. And with that, we will already close this video. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Let me know in the comments which language you want to learn next and why, and what you think about my ranking. I will see you in the next video, and good luck on your language learning path.